the podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for gamers. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram, and I'm joined by
Kristen Soward's also known as Seventh Mastery.
Kristen. I finally got to get back to 3D printing game stuff again after a few weeks of being just swamped down with the business of 3D printing instead of the fun parts.
Swamped down, you say? That's all I've been doing for 2 or 3 weeks now is swamped down in the printing. Literally.
Wait. You're also bogged down with your printing?
Well, with literal bogs from my drippy, gooey plague bogs.
Oh, God. You didn't warn me I was going to have the dad jokes today. I'm used to that with Ryan. I'm not used to that with you, Kristen.
Well, it was you set it up. It was too good not to. So
yeah. So I have. So I'm in for now. I'm in a Pathfinder game where we're playing first edition Pathfinder.
So jealous of that.
So going back to my roots, and we're playing it in Eberron, in the city of Sharn.
Double jealous of that. I loved that setting, and they've done an okay job in the 5e stuff, but man, 3.5 and Pathfinder would be really fun.
Oh yeah, I'm cracking out my old 3.5 hardcover Eberron books, and it's a big nostalgia trip. Like the last time I was this invested in it was 17 plus years ago. Yeah. I am having some lovely fun, and this is like one of my players has volunteered to GM the campaign, so I'm getting to sit in the player seat for a little while.
You totally had that Aladdin scene where your manacles popped off and you were free, and then he became stuck in the lamp, right?
Yes. Phenomenal cosmic power. In space.
Excellent.
But of course, everybody had to have minis, and everybody was super excited because, like, hey, it's custom 3D printed mini time. We've been chatting about it for ages, and it's time.
Or got to have, because I missed that
at this point. Have to have. I don't know that I could just grab a pre-painted old Wizards of the Coast mini off the boxes and play with those again. Like, I absolutely will grab them to fill out in a hurry, but like if it's a player character, it's like even before I got into 3D printing, player characters were special. Player characters were, you spend weeks trolling the Reaper catalog and like Games Workshop bits, and like you, if you didn't find that perfect mini, like I've chased down, I need to find this old retro mini from 1979 in order to get my Halfling Wizard up going, all the way to, okay, I'm going to order these 3 Reaper minis and a diamond saw, and I'm going to hack this pewter apart and then get some green stuff molds put together and some blue stuff. And like, I've always been about the customization. The player character minis need to be perfect representations. And of course, I am of a certain generation in which I appreciated Hero Forge when it came out. It was like this amazing thing. You can have just your perfect D&D character anytime you want. And now it's so now that like I have like the Hero Forge Premium Ultra combo account. That like infinite minis at the touch of a command. So a lot of my players went to Hero Forge to custom out their character, and I thought about that, and then I didn't for my character. And that's been interesting to go back to Hero Forge. Now, first off, Hero Forge is a wonderful website. I'm not going to denigrate Hero Forge as a website, especially historically. That it was really one of the first places that a lot of people got to have any amount of 3D printing touch their game table. And it's very successful business. Send Hero Forge, I would say a lot of money, but a Games Workshop equivalent amount of money, and then get back a 3D printed miniature. And then they've added color 3D printing recently, and they've gotten that a whole lot better. We interviewed their CEO over on No Direction podcast, so that's an old episode worth looking up if you want to go check it out. When we got to talk with him, that was a blast. But now 3D printers have gotten better, and they're in the home, and the technology has really advanced a long way since Hero Forge got started. And they have been adding more and more assets with more and more detail to take advantage of that technology, but a lot of those old assets are still in the bones of that program. And I think Goobertown actually has a really good video that shows this off. That's worth going to check out when he looks
Yeah.
at Hero Forge minis recently. But like, I actually got to experience that firsthand, where my players put together Hero Forge minis for me to print. Some of them didn't, and have picked out bespoke minis over on my mini factory that we then printed. And of course, I went with a bespoke Artisan Guild miniature for my Dampier Magus of the Black Blade. So I'm having some really fun old school vibes
Okay,
with
you
the
just
character.
created all sorts of questions for me. I'm assuming you did it to get a more dynamic pose.
Yeah, I wanted something that just really looked awesome, but the posing, that was it. I cannot look at a Hero Forge mini and not instantly recognize it, no matter how much detail or how new the equipment is, because the poses are so, I've seen them for ages and ages and ages, and they're a little bit awkward. And if you don't know what you're doing with the custom poses, they look really awkward.
They can
And
look a
most,
little chonky
yeah,
and bulby,
yeah, and
weirdly.
yeah, and like all the poses are a little awkward, and you can fix that if you just go in there and just start reposing things itself. But it turns out posing stuff to look believable is a skill set. It's
Shock.
and honestly, one of the things that, just looking at any miniature sculptor or artist, one of the things that will quickly turn me off of supporting or shouting out an artist on the show, or even is if I look at their collection and I'm like, yeah, the detail's nice, but everybody's poses is just off. They look like video game characters in the middle of a ragdoll sequence. They just don't look natural.
Yeah, that's true.
And and so, like, if you're a miniature sculptor right now, pay attention to the posing, get it right. There's little details, like between the shoulder up here and the shoulder down here is everything for some poses, and you just need to look at reference images, and like, this is, artists train for ages and ages and ages to get posing right, and it's still important, in if not more important, with 3D, because we can spin that mini around and look at it from all the angles. So some of the cheats that comic book artists get to get away with, where the bones just don't work that way,
Right.
you don't get to do in 3D sculpting, because I'm gonna
Bob
turn it around and
Liefeld.
go, why is the leg an S shape?
There's no
David
ankle.
Wickham in chat has really nailed it. It's the uncanny valley adjacent. This is it. Yeah, we're very posed to notice things that are almost human.
Speaking of chat, hello James, hello Dusky, also hello David.
Yes. It is super great to have you all in chat. So the posing was right off one of the first things I noticed. There was and all the players picked stock poses, and I am so intimately familiar with all the stock poses of Hero Forges that I just immediately recognize them on sight. And so I can't even do it for myself anymore. I can't make a stock pose Hero Forge mini. I have to get in there and custom up the crap out of it, or I twitch.
I
But this
bet.
is for their pose. So I get them. I get they send me the links to the models they want, and I've got the unlimited print account. So I start downloading the STLs. First, you have to wait. Like, that's the weird thing. Like, they send you. I just go, I want an STL, and they go, sure, we'll get it to you within a few minutes to a few hours. And
Okay.
so three of the players went with Hero Forge figures, and one of the player went and me are doing Artisan Guild figures. So of the three of them, two of them, just a minute or so, like enough time to watch a YouTube video, and they were ready to go. One of them took 6 hours before it was ready to print, and I was worried I was
Whoa.
going to miss getting it printed in time for the game. Ultimately, we got them all, and they look really great. When I pulled them into the slicer, you could
Mm-hmm.
instantly tell the old parts versus the new parts. Unfortunately, part of the old parts is the bodies themselves, the core body itself. The polygons are so big that they show on the slicer, and they show on the final prints, that this abdomen is like 8-sided.
Yeah, that wouldn't do it for me anymore.
Oh, Yeah, so like when there's like any sort of bear skin or anything, like it really shows. And the newer models, like the newer parts, they have like really nice, crisp details. But then like one of them has like one of the older swords, and it's a big old chonk rapier. Like the rapier handle is like the size of a watermelon, and he's like gripping a baseball bat at the hilt, and like the sword part itself, like it looks like the early LARP weapons you could get at Gen Con 20 years ago, where it was just like 2 inches by 4 inches of solid foam. I am almost certain that no human could ever lift the amount of mass that this sword was. And we have, and you can't go too thin. You still, even with modern tech, you can't go too thin with swords. I've seen what
Right.
happens if you try to do realistically thick swords. They just fall off. They fall apart in the printing process.
Sure.
Um, I did miss that none of them were pre-supported because obviously they're not. They're custom posed and
Right.
customized. So I had to do all my own supports. It was stupidly easy because they're all chunky. Like everything's chunky, and the poses that are the default poses were designed for those early Hero Forge days when like they wanted to make sure they're printable. So it was stupidly easy to just throw on some other supports and then go easy. I printed all of
Because
them
they're
with
so
bases
chunky.
attached, which is
Yeah.
something I don't like to do, but Hero Forge models were designed to be printed that way.
Oh, we're
So
going to be talking about that later.
all
Go
their
on.
legs are like in A poses, or like there's no downward facing angles on anything from the waist down on a Hero Forge mini on purpose.
Yeah. So James brings up an interesting question. Are the file sizes smaller because of that? Or are they still pretty big?
Yeah, they were only like 12 megabytes.
Oh, wow. Really? That's
They are
crazy.
super tiny downloads.
There might have been an overage in my downloads this month because I went on a cult's
Okay,
rampage.
some of that is your fault, and some of that is the artist's fault. Listen, y'all, decimate your models. Do not, like, I have gotten some stuff from many companies. Like, I'm going to throw one of my favorites under the bus here. But Last Sword Miniatures did this wonderful like sea elf, sea guard elf set. And the
Mm-hmm.
shields that came with those models were 700 megabytes a piece for a simple oval shield,
A
because
shield.
because somebody forgot to decimate that model after they were done sculpting it. Like, keep in mind, file size matters. A model should not be a gigabyte each. Like,
Yeah.
we're not
10,
printing these things 1-to-1 scale.
10
And yes,
bucks
Hero
per.
Forge is on the extreme wrong end of that, but I have gotten perfectly wonderful, highly detailed stuff to print that's in the sub 50 megabyte sizes, and that's fine. You really don't need the ultra detail on level of polygons for 3D printing something that is less than an inch tall.
Fair. Yeah. I might have gone over a little bit. Yes, I have a cap, David. It's a generous cap, I think, ish, but
And you've been kind enough not to wear it on stream.
nice, nice. No data cap for my. Yeah, I have I
Oof.
have I have a cap like his cap, actually, like your cap. I'm
I
also kind of surprised that there are other services like Hero Forge that don't get as much attention, and I think
Yeah,
are better
there is
quality.
Eldritch Foundry, which
I was
is
just going to
quite
mention that
lovely.
they have an elemental set out that is amazing.
Hmm.
Like I have rarely thought, hey, I need to go and print some of those, but that's one it's so good. Like I was like, oh wow, I should go play with
And
that.
there's another one. I think it's like Anvil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and Eldritch Foundry is really nice. I've printed a few of their minis in the past, and they're more realistically proportioned. Like, they still lean into the heroic scale-y stuff a bit, but they're um but much less so than Hero Forge. Hero Forge's heads on all their minis are massive, just massive in scale, and hands too. Everything's chunky on the Hero Forge model. You will recognize it immediately. It's to the point that I will often, when I'm making something custom in Hero Forge, I'll make it like 9 feet tall just to get realistic proportions, and then shrink it in the slicer.
Hmm. I did not realize that. That's a good trick.
The reverse is also true. If you want something kind of chibi-ish, like a halfling or a gnome, like make it super short and then make it bigger in the slicer.
Hmm. I was trying to find the actual. Is it Heroes Anvil? It's That's gonna drive me crazy that
Yeah.
third
And then
company.
there's
But
like Desktop Hero that has had various versions through the years, and they're the same people that did Town Builder, um, and Monster something or other. And it's okay. It's okay software. The big advantage there is you buy once, and like you buy an asset pack, and you don't get charged per download. Whereas
right,
Hero
right.
Forge still charges you per download. And I think Eldritch Foundry has a monthly plan that you get unlimited just by doing a monthly.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that because those elementals are cool.
Yeah. And Hero Forge
But
has a monthly plan too, but you just get a big batch of credits worth minis. Um, Not super a fan of that. Yeah. I do wish like if you're paying monthly, you should just get unlimited downloads. Like there's like, I think that market is increasingly shrinking, and Hero Forge because ultimately like the alternatives to Hero Forge is like there's the actual software alternatives, but then there's just the modular minis that are out there as the market has exploded. Like especially if you stay within the same family. Like if you've been subscribed to Artisan Guild for a long amount of
yeah,
time, you've got
definitely.
basically infinite bits. Like all these heads, all these bodies, all these weapons that are all cross compatible. All the mounts are cross compatible, and Titan Forge is the same way.
Yep.
Um, Reptilian Overlords for your sci-fi stuff just has like tons and tons and tons of interchangeable sci-fi models. All of the stuff from Wargames Atlantic is super modular. Like there's tons of companies that are very, very super modular. If you just collect enough of their sets or just buy the sets you need to do the customization you want, then you can basically have the mini you want anyway just by using the modular bits. And if you are willing to go into the digital kit bashing side of the world, which again, that takes a lot more time and a little bit more book learning. Um, but then everything is open to you. The
Yeah.
completely perfect mini, like Hero Forge, I hate it. Like, I've got unlimited downloads and I never use it because I would never need to use it.
Yeah.
Even
I
in my
was
own model.
gonna throw like even stuff like Battle Yak or Fleshcraft have modular sets like that where a lot of it's interchangeable. And if you're willing to get in there and futz around, there's some really crazy stuff. Like I'm still not good at reposing a file, and I know technically you usually agree not to do it anyway, depending on what it is. But even still, just futzing around, you can get some pretty great results.
So I do have a picture of the model I went with
Let's see it.
of for my Dampierre.
A very important follow up question that has nothing to do with your mini, but it's. I want to see the mini first.
I went with the werewolf hunters actually because just the model itself had that cool, like I am covered in leather and rags and belt pouches for days that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And the cool long hair with the scarf over the mouth. This is not meant to be a vampire. It's meant to be the human form of a werewolf. It's Artisan Guild's Captain Fenrir, humanoid and wolf heart forms. So
Kind of
like
reminds me
this,
of is it Vincent Valentine? Final
sure.
Fantasy, a little bit.
Yeah. I get that vibe. It's also got some. I've been
Or
accused
Auron.
of who?
Auron from Final Fantasy X, maybe
Mm,
has a similar
some
kind of.
I've been accused of some Soul Reaver vibes
Oh,
from
sure,
Legacy
sure.
of Kain as well. Um, this model comes in two forms. It actually comes in a werewolf version of this in the exact same pose and everything, and
Uh-huh.
it's got that weird inspired by Bloodborne tooth saw that he came with. I replaced that with a more traditional looking like
I know you told
sword,
me you ditched
magicy
that.
sword.
I
And
love
I'm
the big
sorry, I just
toothy.
needed it needed to match the character, and the big toothy hacksaw didn't quite match the character that I was going for. So, like, it's a black blade magus. I've got this intelligent black magic sword, and I wanted it to look like the part.
Toothy could have been an intelligent sword. Could have been
Very
great.
different vibe would have came from Toothy. I like this mini a lot, and I like that sword a lot. It just was not the character vibe I was going for with that weapon, which is the advantage of doing it with the Artisan Guild set. I was able to go into like my vast collection of swords and hands and just pull one out and throw. Actually, I took one from this set, this very set. They've got a really cool one-handed longsword that has like a star base at the bottom of it. Once I'm gonna pack it up, paint it up with some metallic black, it's going to look awesome.
Cool.
Yep. but it's night and day. The when you put the Hero Forges next to this one, it's like the Hero Forges look like they're Legos, and then this thing looks amazing because it's bespoke sculpted mini. The pose is so much more natural. The details are so much more sharp.
Okay, that's got to be a perfect opening. So my game got canceled on Friday, and
Hmm.
so I decided to go down to local LGS, and I was like, I've got to take a pre-paint, and I took my little pre-paint, and I was like so shamed,
Oh no!
and I was like, okay, here it is, and I kind of like I tied it to the character because it was like Circle Stars Druid, and it had the spinning crystal disc, and it was kind of my star map thing for the feature, and I'd worked it out, so it was like I felt okay. This is a good like I made a character in an hour and drove downtown to do this. So I get down there and I put it out, and he's like, "Oh, what we use Legos." I busted out an entire board of Legos, and like, for a moment, I had that like panic of like, "Oh, we're playing with Legos. Can I take this seriously?" And I made the
Hmm.
right decision. I actually put my guy away. I said, "You know what? You have a Lego guy for me." He's like, "Well, I did make a druid just in case," and we ended up using all Legos. And it's that testament to that moment of like, as long as your miniatures vibe, and I think like what you just said there with your Hero Forge, and then your really cool bespoke, artisan guild minis, it's almost just jarring. It's not probably as bad, and if you painted them all well, you could make it work. But there'd be that moment of dissonance for me, and I'd almost rather like that they were all the same. So it's because I tried to do the tokens in my online games the same way in that vibe, but I hope it's not too jarring for you, as jarring as showing up with your mini and having all Legos. That was wild. I was
Oh.
like,
There's a lot of support for Lego D&D in the world now. Like the off-brand third. Okay, so important thing to know is Lego's patent ran out,
yeah,
so it's now
okay,
legal to make basically clones of Lego parts.
yeah.
So if you go looking for it on Etsy or eBay or stuff, you can get like really cool fantasy Lego bits and modular pieces to build just about any character you want. And if you also are willing to 3D print, the 3D printer support for Lego and Lego character models is off the charts
I'm
crazy.
sure.
There's
I'm sure.
everything you could possibly imagine out there that you can print. So if you want your Lego game to be absolute boss tier, go for it. And the 3D printer is a wonderful tool to just lean into it. So you should custom 3D print your own Lego Druid outfit and then get like the perfect Lego Druid.
So David Wickham says it's an expensive game if it's all Lego terrain too. I agree, but
Mm-hmm.
what they did is they're actually buying these for their kids, and then they just make sure that they have the right sets and they kind of keep a couple organized things. And so they're doing double duty on their toys with the minis. And I thought that was kind of clever. And I don't know if you heard, but they actually did. Lego did the smart thing and licensed with D&D. So there actually
Oh
is
wow.
D&D licensed Legos coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
That's great
because
news.
because of course D&D is under monetized. So yeah, they're
Yeah, but
they're
that's
gonna
the
do
fun way to monetize D&D. Release
right.
D&D Lego, I'm all for it. Absolutely.
Right.
Here's my
And so they're
money.
actually they're gonna do mini tiles and the whole thing with Lego. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I think that's gonna be a viable thing. And I hadn't even realized that there's already a 3D community, of course, already doing it in the printed community, which of course there is.
And I've seen plenty of people like in the different Warhammer groups that I'm part of, like show up with like, I made the entire Space Marine army, 2,000 points of Legos. And I'm like, that is the only way to proxy more expensive.
You cut out a little bit, but I think you got the more expensive part across. So
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
for sure.
Ugh. Yeah, Lego very expensive. Though I did when I was in Lexington the other day, I got to see the Lego Optimus Prime like Master Series that is like 1-to-1 scale with the Master Series from Tanaka,
Oh
and
wow.
oh my gosh, it's glorious. It's Lego Transformers have existed for a little bit in various different forms, official, unofficial, a third party, mega blocks, whatever. And I've always been disappointed. Some of the official kits are and then you disassemble the Legos and reassemble in plain form, and like that's not Transformer.
Yeah, that's not a
No,
transformer.
no, no,
No.
no, no, no,
No,
no, no,
no, no,
no.
no.
The Lego Optimus Prime, the masterpiece collection one, actually properly transforms in the show accurate way. So like the legs come down, the arms come down, the headlights and the head folds down and the
Oh
legs fall
yeah.
back just like it's supposed to. And it's wonderful, and that's how you do it. And it's $50. And I'm like, that's almost a Horus Heresy.
Yeah, yeah. The my feeling about the Transformers, of course, because you have to be on a podcast with another person who has strong feelings about Transformers. But I figure they should change in about the time it takes to make the noise from the cartoon.
Which is why I really love some of the automatic spring-loaded Transformers that have come out over the years, like the auto transforming ones, because like boom, done.
Yeah, done.
Oh man, but at the same time, it's really fun. Like I love Transformers. I love like doing the little transformation things. Even today, as like in my ADHD little office world, I keep a Megatron nearby just so I can go fiddle, 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 Megatron, fiddle, 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 gun.
I don't know if I'd be as keen on that one these days, but fair enough.
Yeah, thankfully, like modern Megatrons, this is the one from the Prime generation Megatron.
Uh-huh.
The gun looks like a Nerf blaster, like bright white and neon green, with an orange tip. And honestly, it's a terrible transformer. It is what's called a shell former, if you're familiar with the term. Like the bottom barrel transformers, where basically all the robot parts just shove into a closable shell that hides
right,
them.
Right, where it's just basically like armor on the outside of them, and that's the shape of the thing. Yeah,
right. The prime one I almost forgive because the shell part turned these like awesome robot wings, and so Megatron basically has become Robo Sephiroth, and that kind of makes sense.
Does he have a cool theme song though? Dun,
dun, dun. I mean, I don't think at any point in time Megatron has had a Latin chorus, but we'll just have to hope for next time.
Fair enough.
So that has been kind of what I've been up to in the 3D printing space lately, is besides all the work related stuff. What about you? What have you been 3D
well,
printing?
I've been continuing to work on my Plague Army, and I got this little guy. He's almost done for you with his little armpit mouth for you. Here. This is from Creature Caster. I don't know, with a little teeny head.
We looked at this one the other day, and it is so gross. The head is teeny and coming around in the wrong angle. Arm, mouth, half a body, meat cleaver the size of an ogre.
Yeah, it's still got some work to do on him, but you'll notice he's missing something. And I've run into a problem because
yes, the thing he is missing is
he's missing a base. And I made the mistake the other day of watching the Artis Opus 10 tricks to having a great mini thing. I don't know if you saw it. Mm-hmm. And I got to think as far as like 2 or 3, because he says, he makes a big point about basing is the difference between lazy minis and good minis on the board and making your whole army look bad. And the funny thing is, I started playing, I want to say like 3rd edition, 2nd or 3rd edition Warhammer. Like, I'm old. And right. I remember when you just had a flat black disc, and that was that. And of course, we don't live in that world anymore. And I've got this guy, this big plague pappy here. This is a Cult's model from, we talked about it.
EMG, right?
Yeah, EMG. And I love it. But he also has a base situation. And it's caused me to rethink some things because, at low levels, you hear me talk about our Arc Villain all the time and how much I hate bespoke built-in bases. But I've got this Eldritch Dragon here from Dragon Trapper's Lodge because he's also going to be my Plague Army. And I love the fact that he has this big, crazy built-in ruined sunken temple thing that he's on top of.
Yes.
That's amazing. And suddenly it's useful to me because he's big enough that you can do that and it's not a problem. But with these other guys, I had this conundrum of, do I have the big, cool, bespoke, weird base? How do I get there? Or do I just do something more simple? And I know you tend to be pretty traditional about your basing. I want things to be like playable mostly because I'm going to use these guys in games. And so I'm kind of leaning more towards 3D printed with scenic bits. But I've been kind of like flailing a little bit about how best to do that. So I've been digging through different Patreons and tribes because there are specifically basing focused or people who, as part of their offerings, have really good base options. And so that's what I've been digging through the last couple days is different base options and people who provide bits and ways to custom kit out because like I worry for me about putting. We did snow on some scenic bases for Christmas for a little special project. I want to say first year of the pandemic, maybe I don't know because we hadn't seen people for a while, so we had these little like Arctic scenics, and we did pretty good. You know, got the little woodland scenics trees and glued them up and threw snow on them and whatever. But that was messy, and I had adult supervision because we had a partner in that project. But I'm gonna make a huge freaking mess with that sort of thing. And so like with sand and rock and little tufts of grass and the whole nine, which you do and you do well. I am going to create a big sticky mess all over my already suffering enough gaming table.
Oh. So I do my basing one of 4 ways.
One of 4 ways. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
yes. I've gathered up some examples.
Okay.
So first is the most basic way. So I have a blank base. This is a circle cut MDF that I had custom ordered with a magnet hole, but like just normal blank base, and just some sand, and then threw some wash on the sand.
It's don't know why, base. But your resolution dropped down on your camera like a lot.
Anyway, this is like
very
fun
basic.
dwarf with stand on the base. Then the step up, and this has been my favorite lately. And like this, my whole high elf army is based this way. So it's still traditional basing, but I've got like the geek scenics, like with the sand and the rocks and the foliage and the clumps, and then I come in and like bespoke put little bitty pebbles on each base, and then they get grass tufts on it. And this is maybe my favorite way to do it because like it looks really nice and really realistic. And when you have a whole army with this vibe going on, it's just, I think it's really impressive on the table when my high elves rank on up and you can see all that custom realistic looking bases.
That's one of the things I've definitely been taking into consideration.
Sometimes like my undead army, I just 3D print a set of bases that are themed. So like
that's the other thing I've been doing.
Big Bat Boy here is on just a 3D printed vampire themed base that I have painted up with the little underglow, and like this is the ones that you complain about, like with the posing bits. But I don't
complain about that. It fits on a base.
Right.
I complain about when Queen Tempestra has a flowing blood cloak that goes like into 15 squares around her on my game board.
You can't flank me if you can't fit in the square.
Right? It's like I can't even fit her inside of my modular dungeon tiles. She's too big. I have to take walls off. And that's what bugs me because like they're gorgeous, amazing minis, and I am there for their sculpts, but then their usability is just terrible. Oh, there's something else. The 4th way.
This is the most extra way, where the base is just a custom diorama scene with lots of rocks and pillars and like animals, and on top of the 3D printed bits, like individual bits on the custom base, has got like actual stuff, like actual dirt on top of that.
But you made them so they come out too, didn't you? On some of those?
Yeah. I can pull the individual.
See that
models.
That is next level to me. Like when you can actually still pull it out and use the miniature individually. That's when I am on board for your traditional like big scenic crazy thing. And I wish more mini sculptors, if you're listening, Arc Villain or any other people who tend to go way overboard, if it could just pop out or come on a smaller variant base, I would be so much more happy to continue giving my money to you. You probably don't care, but please. Like
Titan Forge has been doing that lately.
The top
with like the custom trays and stuff.
The top of the like basilica, like the top of the tower can come off when you can just have the tip. It'll still look cool, I promise. You don't have to have the whole freaking basilica beneath it. Yeah, it is.
Some of the biggest models though, basilica is necessary. Like like OPR, we just previewed the God Titan for the Rat Man,
Yeah, yeah,
and she's on like her own, like the city street ruin she's standing on, and then like the sewer all around it has like little rats living their best little rat life, going in and out of the tunnels, and like, and we even previewed a scene that I'm not sure which model it's from. It's like a little rat cafe with tiny little rats wearing a chef hat serving up cheese to a stool, and is part of a base on one of the models.
that's happening
So like
during the
sometimes
battle.
the diorama, like, but the thing is like the Rat Titan is like 4 inches long on the base by 3 inches and stands like 7 inches tall. So
Yeah,
like you've got to have a little bit extra there.
I was actually looking at printing one the other day, and I couldn't like this big guy, and he would be on like a probably a gargantuan base for D&D. Like
Ooh, yeah, yeah.
he, I got him on a single. He's one piece, and I got him on
Hmm.
my Saturn tray just at like a weird
Yes.
angle,
Isn't it lovely having a Saturn?
and like I even put his drain holes in his feet, so when he was hanging up there, he just
Oh.
drained out, and they're all going to be hidden when I put him on a base. It was such a satisfying print.
It also, I really like the grungy paint job you've done on it. It's really nice.
I am fond of his coffee stained teeth, or well, we're gonna say it's coffee, but there's something on there sticking on there. It's got some tartar buildup. Yeah, but so I think I've been kind of going through different
Hmm.
Patreons and tribes, and I just wanted to make sure people were aware of a couple. A couple of them are obvious, I think.
Hmm.
Uh, we've talked about Cobra Mode on the show before.
Oh yeah, Cobra mode's wonderful.
Cobra Mode has some amazing decorative bases. I can't really compliment them enough. Ironically, I think was Andrea who told us that it was like one of the first ads that they did. I think they have a separate artist that does the decorative bases, but they're amazing. And just again, I think you said it. They have theme, right? So like there'll be tree stumps, and the tree stumps will be different sizes with a tree stump element on all 4 or 5 sizes that they offer. That is going to tie an army together. And if you took 2 or 3 of those themes and builded it out, I think one of the things I'm trying to do with my plague army is to pick bases that have liquid on them, so that I can paint the liquid the same
Ooh.
color. And I think that's going to be my cheat there. But yeah, Cobra Mode, it's awesome, and I resubbed it, just to get a couple of these for one of the, I think the sea things, because I wanted some shells for some part of one of them. But they had like a little weird fish thing that I'm going to be putting in part of it, because I wanted to be able to play it in a whole bunch of different environments. But anyway, love that one, and I think that's kind of obvious. We've talked about them a lot on before. But if you like Cobra Mode,
Hmm.
and hopefully you can find this one, there's another one called Awkward Penguin, which I hadn't
Okay,
seen.
what them?
Just in that same arena of cool decorative integrated bases. Excuse me. Um, and it's just kind of the same sort of together. You can get a quick feel off of a base very, very fast. Let's see. Oh shoot, I should have sent you a
Yeah, I
link for
mean
that
they
one.
they seem to have like a good theme, like lots of uh some of the stuff I'm seeing with stuff like Titan Forge and stuff, where like the bases all have like a unified theme, and there's some vertical elements on it for the models to interact with, so you're
But
not
again,
stuck with
very
tactical rock all the time.
very incorporated, and very like it's just one print thing, easy to attach another mini from something to in like a mesh mixer or something similar. um Last of the kind of basic and easy, even more simple but very themey, is sync ratio. I talk about them all the time. Oh, you got found another Awkward Penguin one. Sync ratio,
Yeah, I'm at a little.
yeah, yeah. um does big sets, and I want to say they're big sets, like multiple, I think they're originally Frontiers or Kickstarters, but they are like multiple sizes and multiple versions of the sizes, because usually they would do a stretch goal, and if they got the stretch goal, it'll allow like 5 more 25, 5 more 50. They have like Eldritch horror themes, which I used a lot of to get some tentacle liquidy bases for some of the projects I've been working on. Yes, that's their tree form that we just pulled up. Their tree was a grove of Eldenwood. And of course, because you've convinced me that I need magnets, they have a pre-magnet
Yes.
setup one already, which I like. I like kind of plug and play for that.
You don't want to pull out your Dremel?
No, I don't. And for some reason, I am awful with digging holes on big bases, even in slicers. But
Yeah, I do all my punching in Blender. I get the dimensions for the magnet I want to put in the base. I make that magnet and make it 2% bigger in Blender. I then plug that hole into the base and do a Boolean operation on it to export the new base that now has the perfect magnet hole.
there you go. That's smart. I usually do fast, not smart.
Oh.
But it does work. Usually, that would work very well. Then Moji Bake.
How do you spell that one?
Moji, I believe. Moji Bake. Bake. Yeah, it's Moji Bake, probably. I don't know. But they have an amazing amount of scenics and like little weird things to throw on stuff.
Oh, then my mini factory page is shut down.
Oh, that's weird. But
there's some of their stuff on onlygames.co.
Weird.
But no full bases.
Huh. That is strange because I must
disappeared from the world.
I don't know. That would be sad if it's another casualty because I've definitely have a bunch of their files from earlier when I first started printing. Bummer. Well, that's what I get for not opening that link earlier, but I already had a ton of them on my. Oh no! Well, if you can find the files out there in the world, then I'll just segue to my last and new favorite one, which is Adamant Arsenal.
Okay.
And they, of course, had a big chaos frontier, and that's what turned me onto them. But they have so many basing bits.
Oh, I have bought many of the sets. They're knights versus undead knights or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a chaosy thing, but yeah, definitely it just has so much value in it, by the way, if you are looking for such things, but so many basing bits and just so many different types of basing bits. Like, yeah, you get your candles and your altars and your creepy stuff, but there's also really cool reliquaries if you're doing something. Right. Yeah.
And these little 3D printable bits and stuff, there's lots of like sets of those out there. Good with the traditional basing as well. Like you get this really cool 3D printed rock. I put it on the base next to the elf, then I dip it into my little grout mix with like all my different grades of stuff. My base ready different stuff that I've mixed up and bought. And then you glue down a twig and a rock and a little bit of paint and it looks awesome.
Do you usually paint your bits before you glue them on when you do it that way? Or do you know?
If I'm I have to decide, am I painting the base or am I letting nature take its course? Am I using natural elements or am I painting the base? Anything that's going to get painted on the mini gets glued to the base first, including the mini itself. Then that gets the Zenithal Prime. And then I paint the elements and then I put the natural elements on it.
So you glue your base on before you start painting your mini?
The mini gets glued to the base first, yes.
Whoa. So whenever I do a separate base, I'm going to leave it off as long as possible because it lets me turn the mini upside down so I can paint weird stuff.
Oh, I guess I've just gotten good at brush control. Like I can get I do use like the big fat size 3s these days as like my workhorse brush. And I have gotten to the point to where I can just like turn the mini down and snake that bristle right up its hindquarters to perfectly paint the undercarriage.
I've been using this Master's Stroke 6 for my general one lately.
That's about the size. Yeah, that's a good size brush to work with.
I was very happy that I actually got in on the back of this guy between his ribs on his back
Ooh.
with that. But because
The
you
key
got it.
to a brush is even huge brushes, as long as the tip is sharp. That's all that matters.
It's true. It's true. I do occasionally get these little straggler hairs though.
David Wickham says, what percent on the magnet hole blank? I like to go 2% larger than the magnet that's going to be in the hole to account for shrinkage in the printing process. And then sometimes even that's a little too tight, and I have to come back with my Dremel to just like put it in the hole just to clean the edges. Like it doesn't even drill anything. It's just like make sure there's no like burrs or anything in here keeping the magnet from going in flush.
Yeah.
If I get it perfect, usually the 2%'s right about right. You can pressure fit those magnets in there, and you don't even need glue.
I know you're mentioning that, and like I've got some that are supposed to fit that way.
Mm-hmm.
I've still been gluing them.
I mean, it's hit or miss. Sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. Usually, in any given batch of minis, 1-2% of them will need some extra love with the super glue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, resin warping is going to probably cause tight and bad and wide fits too. So,
Yeah. And yeah, especially if thankfully I use circle magnets, and I think most people will use circle magnets, and circles tend to not warp as badly as straight lines.
it's good to know.
Mm-hmm. So, any more basing tips or favorites?
I'm still at the constructing them spaces, so I probably have some feedback. But my goal is to actually make them all unified. I want it to be done and look okay. And I know I struggle with the grass bit. I know it's really classic, and people like I like the look that people get with like the little army painter tufts and things like that.
Yes.
But I just want something that's gonna like pop off the plate, get it cleaned up and painted up, and that's just strong and durable. I'm clumsy, and I have knocked sand and chunks of things and rocks off of stuff, and I want to minimize that as much as possible. Although I have some confusion because I see some really amazing decorative bases that they're so baroque and amazing and detailed that they kind of break that rule of you want to look at the details on the miniature, not the base, right? Like, and I think that's one of the reasons why for the longest time I was okay with just the plain black bases, is because they do kind of draw away,
Right.
from some
You
of the
paint
minis.
anything black on the tabletop, it means ignore it.
Right. And I kind of feel the same way, about bases. I don't want them to be too neat. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the other opposite end of the spectrum is to just embrace the clear acrylic world and just get the absolute see-through bases that.
So I actually have one right here. I've been doing that for my flyers because I want that to minimize that presence on the ground, and so totally agree with that. And I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and James brings up a point where you're always going to have this balance where if you theme the base, and then especially in role-playing games, the model doesn't appear on that theme. Like it's bad enough in war games when like my tribesmen of the north are all on these really cool Arctic ruins with snow tufts, but we're playing on the desert map in this tournament, so they look all out of place. And in the RPG, it's like my little thief with the OSL with the lantern, and the lantern glow is on it, and you can see the cobblestones of the slick dungeon floor. We're in the mansion in the middle of the daytime, and that doesn't fit either. So
Right.
it's going to be a balance one way or the other. Do you want to like make the theming really strong when you look at the mini as a piece of art, and then just accept that it's
gonna
just
look out of place
representational
sometimes?
And this doesn't even come into the thing is like, do you want a non-combat pose for your mini as well as a combat pose if you're going also down that route? And or you just go with super minimal bases that just the bare amount of material necessary. I tend to lead to making theming that complements the character and making an art piece so that the
Right.
base informs what you know at a glance about what that character is and is supposed to be. And then, just let the theater of the mind and the actual table itself inform that aspect of things, and just let things slide. But if you really, honestly, if you really want to go the ultimate mile, the clear base is the answer. Like, if you want to go the mini will always match the environment it's in. Just get the clear base, so it's the least amount of work and it blends into everything. Or just the plain black bases, but people, unfortunately, some of the nature of the culture of the miniature hobby frowns on plain black bases.
Definitely, I still think is interesting. Because also, for me, that was a sign of brush control back in the day. If I could keep my base from getting messy when I was
Oh, I never
painting.
can. Even today, because I throw like washes and all sorts of stuff, I come back when I'm doing a black base and I'm like, I get that coal black right across there
Go
and I get it
around it.
right across the
Yeah,
boot
that
and
new
never
super
touch the
pigment
model.
black is the same
Oh,
way.
yeah.
But what I was going to say, and I think it's cool that you're pointing out the clear bases. I've been finding that as Whiz Kids with their pre paints has been going to more clear bases,
Mm-hmm.
they actually mess with my ability to see what squares in a little bit, though. So, like, at a glance, you have to, like, wait, where's that? Because you can see the whole grid lines underneath it. So, there's going to be some gives and takes for sure. And I don't know. I think I'm going to try decorative. Well, I was going with the goo.
Mm-hmm.
Goo is going to go over anything, and they're leaking goo in various unctuous fluids from my plague army anyway. So the idea that maybe, aside from the dragon who has the cool basilica top sunk into the mire, the rest of them are just going to be leaking goo on whatever they're on, and I figure that that'll work because they can just be like covering whatever the terrain they're on is with goo.
There, I don't say this often, but there is a wrong answer to a base choice.
Oh,
Yes. The integrated blob that some models, that traditionally made models, like especially from companies like Reaper or Rawpartha had, where it's just like an irregular shape of metal at the base of the feet that technically the mini can stand on. That's the wrong choice for a base for several reasons. One, it's super irregular, and
yeah.
therefore, where is the mini? Secondly, they're almost always too thin in one way or the other, and the minis will constantly fall over
Yes, that was the thing I
and
was going to
tip
bring
over.
up with
Yeah.
those Reaper ones for sure. Is the physics oftentimes work against the
Mhm.
cool, weird, decorative piece of whatever it was, and then
Mhm.
it would top heavy, just
Right.
blob,
And
blob
you can
over.
use the blob as part of the basing. Just put it on a standard base size of whatever is appropriate for the game you're playing, and then like put some basing material around it to blend it in with the base, and you're good.
This guy who just came out last month from
Hmm.
Print Your Monsters,
Uh-huh.
his base is a puddle,
Aw.
and it's just a puddle with dead bodies floating in it. And I figure at any point he could have leaked enough goo to make a puddle, and
Hmm.
then so again it should just work for anything. His puddle will be that might be the way to go, is I should just put puddles under them.
Ooh. I have a question for you though.
Yes.
What color do you paint your base rims?
The rims?
Hmm.
Black. I'm not a heretic.
Oh, I am very much a heretic sometimes. The choice of colored rim is model specific and usually army specific. So
Hmm.
for my fantasy armies,
Mhm.
usually brown. Usually a
I could
nice
see
neutral mid brown.
doing like a pop color if you wanted the whole army to
Hmm.
work together. Like we were looking at that guy's Tau earlier
Hmm.
before the show, and I could see doing that. Like, hey, we're gonna have them all that bright orange or whatever it is, because it'll really make the again unify the army look. But
I really did kind of want to go like full retro sync with Vaporwave with my Stargrave team, and like not only would the models be teal and magenta, but like a nice neon rim on around the bases.
I do have an urge to do like a cyberpunk, like
Hmm.
lit neon traces. And I don't know if I'm it's quite good enough. I think if I got those Puppets War bases that have just like some really subtle line work and some rivets, that I could do. I could do a nice little like neon on. Oh, your camera's doing you no favors. I want to see that, but it's gotten weird again.
Oh no, bad camera, bad.
It's not a bad camera. It's just behaving poorly. But yeah, I think that would be
Honestly,
fun.
it's just bad internet connection. But it shouldn't be. I have complete full bars. Weird.
Somebody, I'm gonna. Oh, I signed up last month this month for Daka Daka, and I think they're releasing their version of like a Necromunda game, and I really enjoyed Necromunda. I probably talk about that too much, especially considering how not a GW fanboy I am. But that kind of small squad with a vague level up system was so fun back in the day, and it wasn't experience points so much as survival.
I never got to partake in the Necromunda or the Mordheim, and I hear that these were glorious times in gaming past that I just did not get to partake in. I was just not old enough at the time.
We have the technology. We can find the pieces, and you could do it again. I don't know. I mean, do they do it at Gen Con? Is that something you can do at Gen Con?
Of course they do. Of course they do. They do everything at Gen Con.
Which, we're going to go to Gen Con.
If you want to meet Kristen and me, we are not guest or presenting, but we are going to be attending Gen Con this year together. And I am happy to get Big World.
Yay.
Definitely looking forward to having fun at Gen Con. And especially like with everything so exciting, I do know Black Flag will be premiering there, which is Kobold Press's RPG that they're working on. And with all the disruption we saw in the RPG space, I expect that Gen Con is where we are going to be seeing new things for once.
Oh, yes.
It is going to be like it's 1997 again.
Whoops. I got so excited I just knocked over a whole bunch of stuff.
I'm going to be scared of Y2K.
I was thinking more 2007.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's going to feel like to me.
Aw. Well, we are out of time, everybody. This has been a fun episode, but if you want to find more of Print Your Games, you can do so over at printyourgames.com. And if you want to help out the show, one of the best things you can do is leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify, especially. That helps get the podcast out to more people. And if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like, a subscribe, a comment down below. Every one of those things just helps the show out. Until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
I'm Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery, and don't forget to use your screen protector.